everyone, it's Kayla, and today I wanted to share with you some of my favorite Cinderella type stories. One of my all-time favorite stories is Cinderella. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's the whole rags to riches, or with the prince chasing after the one he feels he belongs with, or maybe it's just really the main character wanting to have freedom and wanting to be herself. I don't know what it is, but I love Cinderella. I love everything about that story, and I find that it's so easy to make an adaptation of, it's so easy to make a retelling of, just because it's such a simple yet beautiful story. So I just wanted to show you guys some recommendations of books that I absolutely love that have the Cinderella story type trope, or they're just a Cinderella retelling. The first one I'm going to start with is probably one of my favorite Cinderella retellings that I've read, and that is The Cinderella Moment by Jennifer Closter. I love this because it's literally just a modern day Cinderella. Our main character, Angel, wants to be a fashion designer, but she has no money. She's got no way of doing so. But then she gets a chance to head to Paris, masquerading as one of her friends, and she is thrown into the world of fashion, and she meets her Prince Charming, and she's trying to keep up this pretense of being this other person with all these complications arising for her. And it's been so long since I've read it. I am due for a reread because I absolutely loved this book. It was so much fun, and I loved that it was a different take on Cinderella, being that it was very fashion focused. I highly recommend this because it's a great, fun, modern Cinderella fairy tale retelling. The next one I have is probably one you guys have most likely heard about, considering it's more of the popular Cinderella retellings, and that's Cinder by Marissa Meyer. So this is a series called The Lunar Chronicles, and it mainly focuses on a bunch of different fairy tales, but they're retold as sci-fi retellings. So this one is about a girl named Cinder, and she is a cyborg. So she's part human, part robot kind of thing. So she's got like different parts of her that are robotic, and she's also a mechanic. And she ends up meeting the prince, whose name is Kai. So it's a very different take on Cinderella because it is sci-fi, because it's set in the future, and because it's a little bit different than the usual fairy tale retelling, because it does continue on. It's not just focused on Cinderella. It's not just her story. It's a bunch of other people's stories that connect in the later books. But I do like Cinder's story. It's interesting, it's different, and I like the fact that she's a cyborg. I think that's a nice take on Cinderella, that she's a cyborg. I don't know. But yes, I highly recommend Cinder if you are interested in a sci-fi fairy tale retelling. The next one I have is another popular book, and it's probably more recent than some of the other ones on this list, and that is Geek Arella by Ashley Poston. I loved this so much. It was a lot of fun. It's the same sort of Cinderella story as we know. It's another modern Cinderella retelling. So we have our two main characters, Elle and Darian. Elle is a big fangirl, and she's been saving up to go to this cosplay competition at what is like a Comic-Con convention. That's like her main goal. She just wants to be in the competition. And then we have Darian, who is this infamous celebrity here, and he's a big nerd. He's a closeted nerd, and they end up having this sort of like texting relationship, not knowing who the other is. But it's so romantic, and it's so sweet, and it's great that we have Darian, who is slowly becoming more secure with the fact that he's a nerd, and she's helped him do that. I just love it because it's definitely more modern. It's something that I can relate to because I myself am a bit of a nerd, as most of us on here are. And I love it because it's got one of my favorite tropes, which is the texting trope. The whole texting, not knowing who the other one is. I think that's so romantic, and I love it. I really do. So this is another one that I recommend, another modern Cinderella retelling. The next one I have is Finding Cinderella by Colleen Hoover. This is a novella which is part of her Hopeless series. You don't have to read the Hopeless series to read this one, but it does help because it does have some of the characters that are in Hopeless in this book. But this was the first Colleen Hoover book I read, and I obviously read it because it does have Cinderella in the title. It was different to what I expected, and it is a different take on Cinderella. From what I remember, our two main characters end up finding themselves in a closet, and they don't know who the other one is. They obviously can't see each other. Then they hook up. They sort of like make it like a fairy tale thing, like it can only happen for this amount of time, and they can pretend that they love each other, that sort of thing. Like it starts off very insta love in that way, but like it's meant to be like that because they're pretending that they love each other, just for fun. And then when this encounter is over, our main character Daniel is frustrated because he doesn't know who she is, and he wants to find her. He wants to know who she is because he can't get her out of his head. And I love that, by the way. Then he meets this girl later on called Six, and there are a couple of things about her that he's wondering if she is his missing Cinderella or if she's just another girl who seems very similar. But yeah, it's a very short book. Like I said, it's a novella. It's emotional. There's a lot of problems. It's almost like a soap opera in that way. I like it because it's realistic in a way, and it's romantic. Very different kind of Cinderella story, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. And the next one I have is not really a typical sort of Cinderella story, but it's definitely one of my favorites with like the texting trope, and that is It Had to Be You by Stephanie Doyen. This is one of my favorite books. It's one that I have reread multiple times because it's such a fun read. And we're actually learning German at the moment, so I made it my mission to track down the German version of this so I can have it there to read, because it's one that I know most about, one that I've read majority of the time, so reading it in German would be okay. But yeah, so It Had to Be You is not your typical Cinderella story. It doesn't really have that Cinderella story thing with like the stepmothers or anything like that, but it has the texting trope, which I love. So in this book was written in the 90s, so we follow our main character Rebecca, who is just starting to learn how to email. So one of her classes, they're learning how to email, and they have like a school email where they can chat with one another and post things on a online bulletin board and such. Her friend makes advertisements for them on this online bulletin board looking for dates for homecoming. And it takes a while, but Rebecca ends up getting a couple of responses. One of them she is very intrigued by because he does sound interesting. She's also wary because she doesn't know what he looks like, but at least she knows that he goes to her school. So they end up having this relationship via email, and they get really close, and she starts wondering who he is. And then when she discovers that he's actually somebody that she really despises, she doesn't know if her feelings are true. Like, she doesn't know if she actually has those feelings for him or if she just has her feelings for his online personality. And don't worry, that's not a spoiler because it's actually on the blurb on the back. But I love this. It's so sweet. It's the typical teenage romance, and it's perfect to reread because it's so short. Like, it's quick, but it's not insta-lovey, and it's just a lot of fun because it has that mystery conversation text trope thing that I love, and it's one of my favorite little books. So the reason that I have it in this Cinderella story recommendations is because it has the whole talking to someone and not knowing who they are, I guess kind of pretending to be other people. That's the reason why I've included it anyway, but I really do enjoy this book and it makes me happy. It's one of my happy books. It's a book that gets me out of a reading slump. I love it. I love it a lot. Well, there you go, guys. They are the 5 books that I'm recommending to you that are the Cinderella story type retellings. I would like to know if you guys have read any of these or if you've heard of any of these, which I'd say you probably have heard of some because there are some popular ones on this list. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you share the love of Cinderella like I do, or if you have any other favorite fairy tales that you want to share as well. But thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!